Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow, the in-pit lane before show, after show, instead of show, whatever, the just general Thursday night get-together where we all sort of, come around and have a bit of a chat about all things motor racing. At the moment, the Formula One cars have been out on the track for their first test session. What it has taught us about anything, we have no idea at the moment. Max Verstappen is fast again, and Ferraris seem to be fast, but it doesn't really mean anything. Also, there's been testing for the supercars as well. Ford brought their sandbags along apparently, or did they? So we'll talk about that as well. World Superbikes coming up this weekend out at Phillip Island. Street Outlaws are about to start their tour of Australia as well. We'll have some news about that and some tie in there with In Pit Lane a little bit later on in the program. But right now, let's just see who we've got joining us this week, and we've got a cast of several this week. It's not just me and Doc this week. Pete's back, Chris is back. Welcome, guys, and good to see you all. How is everybody?
Terrific.
All right, how are you? Yep.
I'm
revving on all cylinders thanks to the Formula One parade.
This is good. This is good. Let's check out the roll call. Mad Cow Mark is with us again. Good evening to you once again. Good evening, Mark. Also to Jeff McWiggum. Yes, good evening, evening Pilgrims. Yes, good day, Jeff. How are you? Yes, and box. Valet Ken Warby, the world water speed record holder, still world water speed record holder. Nobody has managed to break that. Now his son has basically built a new version of that Spirit of Australia, and is looking to break that record.
Ken was going to do it with him. Did you see the interview?
Yeah, well, I think Ken probably thought in his mind was he was going to do it, but I think it's sort of getting up to 80 years old that he was probably. I'm sure he might have had a run. If he could have had a run, I'm sure he would have got behind the wheel and had a bit of a bash at it. You also remember that Ken also ran jet cars in drag racing as well, toured both Australia and America with the jet cars, along with Sue Ransom, the of course well-known circuit racer. Sue got behind the wheel of the jet car, the Jet Funny car, and toured the United States alongside Ken as well. So has experience in both on water and on the drag strip as well. So, but a good innings. And let's face it, there's not a lot of world water speed record and record attempters who live to a ripe old age. I mean, most of them go a lot earlier before that. SB, welcome. Yes, good day, SB. Nice to hear from you again. Also, just quickly, as Mad Cow Mark there, James Wharton, Formula 4 UAE champion, part of the Ferrari Academy, another young Australian driver that's looking to do a lot of good overseas, and hoping to catch up with James for the show in the next few weeks as well, reaching out to him to have a bit of a chat online if that's at all possible. Giuseppe's with us again. G'day, Giuseppe. How are you? Nice to catch up with you. But anyway, let's talk about what's been happening first of all. Let's start with tonight. Formula One. Pete, you've been having a look at it all. They did decide after all to televise it in Australia. We've seen the morning session. Have we learned anything about what we might see in the coming season, apart from the fact that Red Bull are going to be fast again? Are you on mute, Pete?
No, I don't think so, apart from the fact that Red Bull are going to be fast. Although I didn't know pre-testing that I always used to say liveries don't make a car go faster, but apparently liveries do have an impact, because Toto Wolff said not painting the car makes it lighter. So,
well, that's an old Smoky Unique NASCAR trick. I mean, in terms of making the cars faster, was if you don't paint them, if you don't put as many layers of paint on them in the old days, then yes, they're going to be lighter. And also, he was one of the first people to say that you're much better off painting the sponsorship logos on, because in the old days, of course, they put stickers on the cars. And he said, well, all of those stickers have ridges on them, and all of those ridges contribute to aerodynamic drag. So he was one of the first people to sort of, to look at that in very minute details. Well, Smoky Unique, of course, famous for making cars that weren't to the full. They were sort of 7/8 scale cars, and people sort of looked at them and went, "That car looks a little bit different." They couldn't figure out why. And that's why they introduced templates, because when they did put a template over the top of some of Smokey's cars, they found out they were a little bit lower and a little bit narrower and a little bit lighter. And also the rumours, I don't know whether it was ever proven, but the rumours were that the firewalls might have contained just a little bottle of nitrous here or there as well. So, but anyway, yeah. So we've seen Oscar Piastri hasn't really done any laps. Oscar went out with the aero rakes on the car. Pete, if you were watching and listening to the commentary, did you get the impression that the Sky commentators were sort of getting stuck into Oscar Piastri a little bit early? They started the anti-Australian sentiment, a little bit quickly.
Yep. They seem to love Daniel Ricciardo, I think, for his personality, but yeah, they were, and they did that with Daniel originally, but
that's the thing. I mean, they can't make. They spent most of the year sort of hopping into Daniel, and now that Daniel's gone, it's like, and Oscar hasn't even started. No, he's not Daniel Ricciardo, and I mean, if Daniel couldn't keep up with the extraordinary talents of Lando Norris, well, not sure that for all he's been out a year, and he's. They were sort of, the fact that he won in Formula Renault in his first, he won in Formula 3 in his first year, he won in Formula 2 in his first year, but they were sort of going, he was like, they weren't the strongest of years in terms of, they seem to be sort of, let's just bury him a little bit, let's not raise expectations too much, and let's get ready to have a go and point out that perhaps Daniel could have been given another year on with the cars, and get used to the new regulations.
It's that time of year, I think, in Formula One, and also we'll touch on it later with supercars, that because it's the number one focus, there's a little bit of over and analysing going on and a bit of overthinking. So they'll nitpick and pull apart everything just to suit it there, to write themselves a new column or a new excerpt. So a bit of over-analysis, I think.
Well, that is the...
Did they strike you, Pete, as knowing what they were talking about?
Sorry, Chris?
Did they strike you that they knew what they were talking about?
Not really. I think they were just filling airspace because I think with testing they need to find things to talk about. It struck me that this is the first time I've watched testing because it's the first time it's been televised in Australia, and I think they struggled to find things to talk about.
Did you have a bingo card with winglets written on it for how many times they say it and you got to scull a drink for it or something like that?
Yeah, there is a bingo card out there. It's like, take a drink every time they mention sort of VisFlow paint or aerodynamic rakes.
Extra carbon fibre in that area, new hood.
Or less carbon fibre in the area. The big talking point at the moment, which Doc is referring to there, is Ferrari's nose. Because apparently at speed, Ferrari's nose is sort of changing shape a little bit. Now, Ferrari have come out and said, "No, look, we were just trying to save some weight. There's we've taken a little bit of material out from the front, and that means that it's a little bit flexible, but it has no aerodynamic advantage at all." But when you had a look at the close-up when they were in the pits, the interesting thing was, I think it might be sort of just a side effect, because the fact that they put the nose in the pit lane, they didn't try to hide it, they didn't cover it up, they didn't take it out the back, they put it right there in the pit lane in plain sight, and for everybody to come and have a look and even touch it if they really were that desperate. But you could see, I mean, it was very obvious that area was a different construction to everything else when they got on the side, and you could see the light reflection off it. You could see that it looked like a completely different sort of material. in that area. So I'm sure they were having a bit of a fiddle around and seeing what they would come up with.
Aren't the conspiracy theories working overtime? Lewis Hamilton spying on a Red Bull car as usual, and that's the thing too. Everyone has been waiting for anticipation for the Red Bull 19 car that's obviously joined on board for this session, because they did a private session, I think at Silverstone, and they didn't allow anyone for filming, photography, media, full stop, and everyone was trying to do their spy stuff, and that didn't work out for them. So everyone, the footage that people have got so far, so apparently there's 3 or 4 things, including the nose on the Red Bull as well too, that's been highly scrutinised.
Yeah, it looks like there's also some changes to the regulation, which has allowed them to make some changes to the wing stays in terms of how they're designed and the contribution they make to sort of directing the air around and between the front wheels and under the car and all the rest of it. So we know how sophisticated they are. As we can see, Dave Stillwell's joined us. I think he's in the car at the moment, so I'm not sure whether he's. Whether he's like,
yes, I am.
You're coming. And whereabouts are you? Are you driving down as we speak, or have you made it to your destination?
Well, this evening I'm most of the way through the driving I've had to do today. I've been privileged to be the best man to one of the doctors from Team Medical Australia, one of our favourite volunteer motorsport official organisations. He and another member of Team Medical Australia, a paramedic, got married in McLaren Vale yesterday evening. It was a lovely service, so I've driven back today, just competed in the Victorian Park Street Orienteering Championships, been home, done a pit stop to pick up the World Superbike officialing outfit, and I'm on my way down to the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit as we speak.
Yes, that's coming up this weekend, the World Superbikes. So it's been a bit sort of snuck up on us very early in the year, but
World Superbikes.
Oh well, perhaps hopefully after the day is the weekend is concluded, there might be some of the sponsors' product floating around.
I think you'll find there will be a surplus of the supply of the primary sponsors' product lying around. They did, of course, come on board for the World Superbike finale last year, and it was very well received by both the punters and all the officials at the catering outlets. Very fine product from Merbau North, another great Victorian regional business.
It's a good weekend down at the Superbikes. We did it quite a few years ago. That since Dorna took it over, we've had it's been very hard to get in and get access to it from a media point of view. But prior to Dorna, it was very, very open, and it was always a really fun day. The riders were very sort of accessible, and you can, even if you go down tomorrow, I think it's about. I think it might be about $50 full admission. I think there's a concession at about $35 or something, but it does include paddock access as well.
It does include paddock access, and I believe if you can demonstrate that you are a local, so if you have photo ID that indicates your postcode is either on the island or somewhere in the Bass Coast Shire, I believe you get free entry on the Friday. Don't quote me, please check the event website, but I was tuned into the recent episode of On the Grid from theracetalk.com. Tony Shebeki, I believe, is doing some of the commentary down there this weekend, and one of the guests they had on the program filled them in on what was happening down there this weekend, and it sounds like it's going to be a great event to kick off the 2023 World Superbike calendar.
Sounds like there's going to be a flurry of farms that have got addresses that are being used as fake IDs tonight, now being hurriedly written up, I would say, by the sound of things after that comment.
Having attended that event for the last couple of years, in fact, that was the last major international motorsport event that took place in Australia in completion before the COVID-19 pandemic kicked in. I remember late in February in 2020, everyone was sweating bullets, hoping it wasn't going to turn up. And we managed to get through that with all the Italian teams that could go race in Australia, but they couldn't go home. Of course, everyone in a much better mood. And it was a fantastic sort of back-to-back, two massive motorcycling events within a 5-week period at the end of last year. And of course, Phillip Island back as the opening event. They had testing on Monday and Tuesday. So huge shout out to all the volunteer officials that were down there at the island circuit on the Monday and Tuesday for World Superbike testing. They've had their bump-in day and their training today. So 3 days of hot sunny action at Phillip Island. Of course, knowing the weather, bring your sunscreen and your raincoat and your galoshes and your cyclone tent pegs.
Actually, well, I can tell you for reminding me, Silly, I did see a press release for the Phillip Island coming up. I'm just slightly getting ahead of ourselves here for the Island Magic in a few weeks' time, but I don't know if anyone's picked up on it. Yeah, the historics, I should say. Did any of you guys pick it up on the press release where I think it was Andrew, I won't mention his surname for legal reasons, so I don't get him in trouble, but I think Andrew put out a press release and it said, bring your rubber boats as well too. And I happened to just pick it up there. Everything was very formal and everything straightforward.
It wouldn't be the first time you needed a boat at Phillip Island. We have had a few floods there over the years, but this is how quickly it can change. I mean, like I was there last week for the RX8 Cup for the guys from New South Wales for the Yellow Express RX8 Cup Series, the opening round there, and on the Saturday morning they went out and it was about sort of the high 20s and for the first practice session. Second practice session it was into the low 30s. By the time qualifying came around at about 4 o'clock that afternoon, it was about 18 degrees. And when we turned up on the next morning, it was pouring with rain, blowing a gale and about 12 degrees. So we went through, you went through all of and by the time the meeting had finished, it was quite nice, but the wind was just, once the wind turns around to the south there, it gets pretty bloody cold pretty bloody quickly.
That's probably that's probably what you're saying from just the normal weather conditions. You'd need a spreadsheet on what the track temperature was for all that.
Well, no, run the averages. On average, the weather was perfect.
On average, well, apart from the wind and apart from the this is going to be the problem. I mean, always is for the bikes, but our beloved friends, the Cape Barren geese. There were a lot of Cape Barren geese there, and they were not moving. At one stage, when I was driving between, I put I locked off a camera. I wired off a camera up at the top, and I'll tell you something about that in a moment. But I wired off a camera at Lukey Heights, then went to my position that I was filming from at Siberia, and as I was driving down the back, there were like four. In the middle of the road, there were four Cape Barren geese, and I lit there. So I hit the horn. They were not moving. I stopped. I edged forward. I was pressing up against one of them. He was not moving. He was not going anywhere, and they were looking into they have zero fear about. They were on the side of the track. They were just And it's bad enough when they do a lot of damage to a car, but by geez, they can cause real tragedy on a bike.
That's what Alvaro Batista was talking about. I think they had 5 red flags in just a session 2 days ago when they were just out for their first day of kicks and giggles and just throwing stones around the track. So I mean, obviously that all the wildlife, not the geese were mentioned, the kangaroos and everything. So, yep, that's Phillip Island for you.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. I know that I would really wonder about how they're going to stop it, because I mean, it's one thing to stop kangaroos at Bathurst and even at Phillip Island. You can put some very, very high fences around, and that's tough enough. But there's how the hell are you going to keep Cape Barren geese away from the track? If the Cape Barren geese want to be at the track, then they're going to be at the track, and there's not a damn thing anybody can do about it. And that is going to be a problem, because a lot of the world superbike riders and the MotoGP guys as well were saying last year, look, this is it's getting a bit ridiculous out there, because if we hit one of these things, somebody's going to die. I mean, because these things they're big birds. They're seriously big birds. And if they get in the road, and they got very close on occasions on the weekend, you could see them sort of diving, taking off and diving in front of cars. And if you did that and collected a motorcycle at some stage, by geez, it'd be a hell of an accident.
When the two-seater was at our park, the birds there had no fear. They were sitting at the side of the track, which made me laugh because the protesters were saying, "Oh, you'll upset the birds." Well, they were sitting there.
I remember. What's his name? Michael Leunig. When the thing there, he was on television actually crying and going, the birds will be terrified by think of the beautiful swans, and they'll be absolutely terrified by that horrible noise. And the birds are sitting there going, what horrible noise? Who cares? It's a they couldn't give a stuff. The birds.
They love the Grand Prix. That's their peak time for carb loading and stocking up on breadcrumbs and scraps.
Oh God, chips and stuff. Yeah, they get.
Well, they might be.
Box is saying drones. I think you need more than drones. I think sort of as Mark is saying, Mark and Jeff are sort of saying the same thing. It's sort of a supply rule 303. But you can imagine that's not going to go down terribly well with the conservationists but they've got to do something about them, because just driving to the track, like as I was coming from where I was staying at Cowes on the Saturday morning, it was just as you were driving along, they were everywhere there, and you just saw them in night time flying around in big flocks, and their numbers are just getting out of control there. So they're going to have to do something about them, because they are becoming a real pest.
I understand they are obviously effectively an imported species to the island. They're not originally native, and their numbers have swelled to such a size that they are, as you say, a pest, because they leave droppings everywhere that effectively becomes a slipping hazard on a number of sealed surfaces. So it may be that culling them is perhaps not the worst thing we could do for the population of all the other birds on the island.
I'm just wondering what they're like. I mean, because goose is a lovely meat. I mean, I'm just wondering, No, it is. I mean, it's a delicacy. Go to Hong Kong and have roast goose in Hong Kong. It is beautiful. And I don't know whether they're not Cape Barren geese, but I tell you what, you'd get a damn good feed out of them. Might be a bit tough, but I reckon that I wouldn't mind a feed of Cape Barren geese.
I heard the best place to get it is Hong Kong.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. He's been saving that one up.
I think we better change this up. It's getting exactly. What's it about? 50 minutes left on. I was going to say, where were we 50 minutes left on Formula One testing? Well, we got Science, Joe and you, Gasly. Who else is out on the track at the moment, Pete? Has everyone got the TV screen sitting around? I've got live timings sitting here. There's a few out on track with 49 minutes to go.
KO is in my other room, so I can't.
I think the morning session is finished. I don't know. You got the timing there, Doggy. You got the Formula One app up. The Formula One app for me is not working. It is just coming up. Yeah. Okay. So you've got that on there. On my desktop, it's not working. The live timing isn't working at all. It's coming up. It's coming up with times. There's car numbers or drive. So
this is one of those YouTube illegal live channels that I've patched into. So there's 5 cars. Piastri's out there on the track at the moment. Sainz, Joe Gagnon, Gasly. Who's DRU? Would be that'd be Russell, would it?
Oh, that's Drogovic. He's filling in for he's filling in with Aston Martin for who's it? Lane Stroll.
Yeah, that's doing a bit too. I saw.
Yeah,
earlier.
so
not now.
Drogovic, who was he's their reserve driver. But yeah, I don't know whether it makes any difference with what we're seeing at the moment. We've got 3 days of testing.
Doohan got appointed reserve driver for Alpine about a week ago as well too. Yeah,
that's interesting. It's interesting that the idea that that Alpine seemed to be very focused on, a little bit focused on Oscar Piastri as well. I mean, they were sort of saying that, we're going to make him regret his decision to leave us for McLaren. I think he's probably one season with McLaren. He's probably going to regret that anyway. So
just play the Beatles. Let it be.
I don't think
someone needs to send the team at Alpine a copy of Frozen and just tell them to let it go.
Oh, there you go. There's 2 quotes there. You still use or mine. Just play them in sequential order on repeat, both those songs. Let it go and let it be. Anyway.
Yeah, but so they seem to be a bit taken with Oscar and a bit annoyed, but they've only got themselves to blame. Hey, listen, also with Formula One, we've got 3 days of testing. It is on KO. The afternoon session will be on KO and Foxtel as well. Also coming up on not on Foxtel, but if you're one of the 25 people who has Stan Sport, this weekend, four-wheeled action happening down in Tasmania. We've got the TCR series running. Seems to be a pretty good field of TCRs and a very good field of Trans Ams. And it's interesting that Super Cheap Auto, who sort of muscled aside by Repco in the world of supercars, are throwing their weight behind the Trans Am series. And geez, if you look at the current supercars and then you look at the Trans Am cars, not a huge difference in how they look. There's a big difference in price, that's for sure. But it's looking like a really good field at Simmons Plains for this weekend. Unfortunately, the S5000 field, plenty of good drivers, really top quality field of drivers. But I think there's only about 10 cars that are running there, so they're still struggling a bit with S5000, which is a shame. But that'll be on Stan Sport for the weekend. But Saturday's action from about 2:00 will be on Channel 9 on one of the Channel 9 digital channels. I think it's 9 Gem or something. But if you have a look around, 9 Go, is it 9 Go? Yeah. So 9 Go on Saturday. You can have a look at the Tasmanian action. I think they've extended it now to 3 hours. I mean, it was a 2-hour coverage, so you only got a couple of the races, but they're going to extend that now to 3 hours. But if you want to watch the whole meeting, if you want to watch pretty much everything, then it's that extra money on Stan Sport, which is probably not worth it. But anyway, that's mine. Unless you like rugby. If you like rugby, then it's a terrific deal.
If you like IndyCar, it'll be on Stan Sport.
Yeah, IndyCar World Endurance Championship will also be on Stan Sport. Formula E, if you're that way inclined. I think there's World Rallycross. There is like a few motorsport things sort of popping up there, but I just think, if it was just the $10 for Stan Sport, I could justify it. But when you've got to pay for the money for the other side of it, to get Stan as well, and then you get the sport as an add-on, I've got zero interest in anything that's on Stan. It's the same. Like I had Netflix and I had Apple TV. I've tried a few of them, and quite frankly, the only thing I want to see is sort of my sports, which are all for better or worse. Most of them are on KO. I'd like to see IndyCar. I will get the World Endurance Championship. Half of the races are at very strange times, but I can still, at least last year, you could still get the feed direct from the World Endurance Championship. You paid your sort of $14 to them, and you got the feed for the whole weekend. So you just pick and choose. So I picked sort of Spa, Monza, and of course Le Mans for that. But that's they've got the Sebring 1000 coming up. That's the opening round of the World Endurance Championship, where we'll see the debut of the new Ferrari. Speaking of Ferraris, the new Ferrari hypercar, we'll see them in competition with the Toyotas and the Peugeots and the Glickenhaus. So it's looking like a good season of sports cars ahead.
Speaking of that, before we go off the subject too, I happened to just look through your side notes during the week. I think Red Bull are being a little bit forward with their publicity stunts. So they've signed a deal with for their building of their transmission for 2026 already. So they've made some public announcements, obviously with their partnership with Ford, and now the software and technology company for their transmissions. They're not being scared on backwards and coming forwards with some of their announcements on what their plans are going to be, which is it's good to see. Nothing wrong with being open and transparent.
The interesting thing is, like when because the new regulations will come in, and so I think it's what is it, Pete? 2026. Yep. So 2026.
2026.
Yeah. So and then of course Audi comes in as well, and Audi could be the real surprise there, because Audi have been successful in pretty much every motorsport that they've been involved with. We know how they dominated at Le Mans and the World Endurance Championship for so many years. Their cars were enormous. Dakar. Well, they haven't been quite as successful there, I suppose, but they were successful in Trans Am racing in America, in IMSA racing, in super touring. They were just rallying, of course, with the Quattro. So they've been very successful over the years in all forms of motorsport. They've got a lot of the talent that went into the World Endurance Championship, including that and DTM and all the rest of it, is now going to be transferred over to the Formula One program. So I would imagine that they will be a lot more competitive. Than I would say that they would be up there, and certainly running in the top 5, if not in the top 3 or 4. So that'll be interesting. But in the meantime, I think everybody's in a bit of a holding pattern now. It looks like, you'd have to say, if you look at this year, it's already looking like the only people who are going to challenge Red Bull are probably going to be Ferrari and or Mercedes. You can't see anybody improving, that much. I can't anyway.
Sure, it was clickbait, but I did see something about, I don't know how what was all entailing, but Zach Brown touring the Red Bull factory as well, though, too, this week. I know something. I'll have to chase that up as well, too. Anyway, very good. Don't forget, just before we get on to another big subject, I noticed Jeremy was promoting it during the week. He's our EVS extraordinaire, does a lot of fag marshing, a good mate of all of us, and we see him at the track. We caught up with him at Sandown last weekend. Jeremy's, I think he might be heading up to Ballarat for the Supercross as well, though, too, or Super Enduro and all the different.
Is that this week? Is that this weekend as well?
Everything's on this weekend. It's up at Ballarat, so they were struggling for flaggies, I think, Brett. And Jeremy was trying to give him a leg up on who to contact to try.
So if you are a flag, that looks really interesting. It's something very different. It's not Supercross. It's a sort of a bizarre mixture of sort of Supercross and trials, and because yes, they are racing, but they're going over barrels and rocks and all sorts of things. It's not a straightforward thing. So it looks a really interesting event. And if it was certainly if it was a lot closer to home, I'd have taken a run up and if possible, waved the camera around and had a look at it. But it is unfortunately just a bit too far away, and I've got so much work to do on the RX-8 Cup stuff. I mean, that's I'm now into about my 30th hour of editing that, because the racing incidentally was fantastic. You'll see that on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, also on the RX-8 Cup. On the RX-8 Cup channel as well, once I've got it all finished, which I'm hoping, keeping my fingers crossed, I get it done and out of the way before the weekend is over and done with, because coming up next week, we go back into the studio. We do a rehearsal and a full dress rehearsal, which we'll probably stream live on the Facebook page as well. But coming up on March the 9th, on Channel 31 Melbourne, and probably not confirmed yet 100%, but it's certainly looking like the Friday we will be on Channel 44 in Adelaide as well. We're still looking for some support in Adelaide. There's a few things that we've got to sort out. They work a little bit different in Adelaide than 31 does in Melbourne, but they certainly said that they would like to. They certainly want the show back. So hopefully we'll be back on. But our guest for that first show, just before we go, the guest for the first show, very important. we will have the CEO of the Australian Grand Prix Corporation, a good friend of the show, Andrew Westacott, will be joining us. He's also bringing in Dave Corrigan, the motorsport manager from the Grand Prix Corporation, and he's going to tell us all about sort of the incredible juggling act that he's been doing to fit in sort of, both Formula 2, Formula 3, Supercars, Carrera Cup, all of those things, and how they're working all that out. So that's the first episode of In Pit Lane on March the 9th on Channel 31 at 9 o'clock. Our special guest will be the CEO of the Grand Prix Corporation for probably his last appearance on the program. And as he said, hey, I made my first year as CEO. I came on In Pit Lane from my last year. I'll find the time, and he has. So thank you to Andrew, and we'll see him coming in on.
How could you not get excited about that? Well, he might have a bit of spare time up his sleeve, Brett, and you never know. He might be able to come in half a year the following year for half the season, do 9 episodes or something.
Well, it depends on what he's going to do. I mean, if he might.
Well, Gil McLaughlin's moving along halfway through this year from AFL.
Exactly.
And so is Tony Cochran.
Yeah, Tony's decided to call tonight at the Suns. I've seen a few.
Well, Tony's doing that to concentrate on the World Supercross because as he was saying, like he's running around the world, sort of getting that up to speed, and he really can't put in the time with the Gold Coast Suns that he needs to because most of the Australian winter he's going to be in America and Europe promoting the World Supercross series.
Gil McLaughlin's famous for having his barbecues and having all the coaches over during the year. Maybe you could invite Andrew over and Tony over and a few of the other bigwigs around Australia, and they could rock, paper, scissors on where they're all going to go and where they're not going to go. I do have some more information for us from Sandown, Brett. We've got to fix up our graphics package on the show at the end of the season. I dropped into Sandown on the following day. We were both there on the Friday, but the graphics need changing because we might have to drop down to births, deaths, and marriages and get our names changed by deed-poll at the very least, because I was walking along the paddock and I was near some cars and a guy stopped me and said, "Hey, you're what's-his-face? You're that guy who does the show with what's-his-face." So I'm now known as that guy, and you're what's-his-face as our new names, all right? So it was a backhanded compliment. You're that guy that does the show with what's-his-face. And it was bloody hilarious. Everyone else that was standing around just laughed when he came out with that line.
You have to do it online. You have to do it online because there's no bricks and mortar birth, deaths, and marriages anymore.
Oh, okay, yes.
I got mine. I got some stuff done there. It was fine when I went there. Anyway.
Well, I'm doing a lot of that. It's funny because there's a lot of sort of I'm doing a lot of sort of legal stuff right now for one reason or another involving the house and everything, and it's everything is online now. It's like it used to be. Well, I'll come in and I'll get the title. No. You do it all online now, and you do it with a credit card.
They're all working at home with their cats and their dogs sitting on either side of the thing, and they're just feeding them treats. That's what they must be doing.
Apparently, according to Paul, we've got Formula One. The Sky team has Jack Doohan in the commentary box. He seems to be very popular for a bit of a chat. Jack, he's been on the Sky commentary box a lot. He's very popular also with Peter Windsor, I think, because Mick Doohan's company sponsors his podcast. But so I think that's part of that. But he does seem to be a very good sort of media performer, and seems to be very popular with the Sky people. So I imagine we'll be hearing quite a lot of Jack over the coming season when he's not doing what he's doing.
He's commenting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars around the track at the moment. You've got Joe's out there. Albon, Verstappen, Hulkenberg, Gasly, and Russell. Sorry, 6 cars are out there. So there you go. He's got half a dozen cars at the moment. I find it odd that they've got Verstappen in a black dot this time on the live timing, which I think is a bit weird. But anyway, so
let's talk about the supercars just quickly. I mean, it's not everybody's sort of gone into a blind panic about the results of the one-off test at Sydney Motorsport Park. The Camaro's absolutely dominated. the series. I think the fastest 9 cars or something with Camaros, and they were comfortably ahead. Andre Heimgartner was clearly the fastest, but as Brad Jones himself has said with the cars, he said, "Look, he said we're not running to an actual minimum weight now. The cars are all sorts of different weights. The Fords, interestingly enough, decided to stay on the harder compound tyre. They didn't go out and do any running apparently on softer compounds. So it's not really indicative of what we're going to see. Ford's still upset with the parity, and it's interesting that Supercars they're saying that it's not it's not a test, it's not an official, but they're just going to run the cars at an airport to just fine tune a bit of the aero package. Apparently, the deal is that, according to what I've been told, is that the cars, the downforce, the drag, pretty much everything. It's amazing how they can get it so close. Pretty much the downforce is the same, the drag is the same, but what's different is where that's happening. The Camaros apparently have a lot more rear downforce than the Fords do. And talking to Tom Randall at Sandown on Friday, he was saying that in his drive of the Mustang, he said, a lot of fun to drive. He said, fabulous fun to drive. He said, but what they're worried about at the moment is how long those rear tyres are going to last on some of those tracks. He said, because he said they get. He said it's going to be very spectacular. He said, but there's a lot of sort of wheel spinning and sideways motoring coming out of those Mustangs at the moment, and that's and certainly a lot more than we're seeing from the Camaros. And he's still saying we'll probably be quick, but whether we can be quick for as long as the Camaros at this stage, we don't really know. So until we get to Newcastle, who knows?
I found a couple of comments quite interesting from reputable sources, and this was a good idea considering the circumstances with still parts missing on cars, considerable, significant parts, maybe even the first couple of rounds, because there's going to be so many variables. Should they actually wipe the points and just use them as great installation and get things right? The other thing as well, though, too, that you just touched on, Brett, as well, too, which is importantly, side issue is, I want to know where you got your sandbags. Brett, did you get them from Echuca or did you get them from New South Wales? But anyway, aside from that, Brad Jones came out and said, and he's usually got a bit of tongue-in-cheek, and you can usually suspect it, so I didn't get to see the visual on this, but he could be right to a certain extent, because obviously there's going to be some rule changes, and there's going to be lead added to cars in different areas, wherever it may be. All the data up until now, to a certain extent, is going to be to a complete waste, because there's going to be significant setup changes.
Yeah, I think that's the problem of them not being able to do a lot of testing. They've cancelled a lot of testing, but there is some more testing happening. But until they until they can actually I'm amazed that we're only a few weeks out from the opening round, and we still don't have the rules and regulations absolutely locked in. We still don't have the official minimum weight for both of for each of the cars.
Engine weights they don't even know yet.
Well, they always knew that the Coyote was going to be a heavier engine than
kilos. 60 kilos.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, but and they can compensate that. I mean, they can whack some lead in, or they can do, they can compensate that to an extent. That's the weight's not a problem. I think the problem is going to be on Australian tracks is you've got two very different car configurations now, but they're saying that as like it's a bad thing, as saying, I mean, the Mustangs are going to be really well suited to some of the track, the more open flowing tracks. The Mustangs are going to be a lot more suited to that than they are some of the point and squirt tracks like sort of Simmons Plains and some of the street circuits. But to me that's a good thing. I mean, I don't want they make the cars so close. This is what Dave Reynolds said. We reported it last week. Dave Reynolds said if they make the parity too close, nobody's going to pass. I mean, there's going to be no difference in terms of. If the braking areas are all the same, if the cars handle the same, it's just going to be a procession.
Speaking of wheel nut dramas again today, hope they don't surface in that first couple of rounds for any team, because that would be just bad luck. Yeah,
what they were saying, I think it was No, I forget who was saying it now. It's just gone out. Adrian Burgess. Adrian Burgess was saying today that the problem seems to be the when the wheels are hot, and they obviously expand, and they're having trouble getting the nuts to lock on and to actually seat properly. So that's a machining problem. I'm sure they'll sort that out before the opening round.
It's an issue between having hot wheel hubs, so the car's running around, and obviously the spindles are steel, so they expand at a different rate. Whereas the aluminium wheels, when they're cold, you've got you're ending up with interference or lack of tolerance between the center lock, where the wheel nut spins, but also between the holes on the back of the hub face of the wheel, where they go onto the drive pegs on the spindle. So if you remember,
drive pegs.
The system is not that dissimilar to what they've run previously. They've just slimmed down the size of the center spigot and the size of the wheel nut and the style of wheel nut that they use. They've gone to more of a GT style as opposed to the traditional very large hexagonal nut like we'd have in supercars. But look, if this is all that's happening from a mechanical perspective, with effectively a brand new architecture of car where the only thing we've carried across are some of the badges that they stick on the car and the transaxle that went in the rear, I'd say this is a pretty successful deployment of a brand new architecture for a race series. That these are only the real teething problems that they're having.
Yeah, so the car's certainly from a mechanical point of view, from the number of laps they put in, there were no major problems in terms of engines or anything like that. I mean, a few problems here and there, but nothing major. I mean, if you remember, like they were talking about, it's going to be chaos at Newcastle. We might only have sort of, like half a dozen cars finish or something like that. I don't think that's not looking like it's going to be a problem now. I mean, the engine technology is very secure. There's nothing wildly revolutionary about either of the engines or of the chassis or anything. It's just it's new car issues.
Yeah, but it's just the time that they've given them on. That's the problem. So if they actually had stuck to, obviously with all the issues they had, someone brought up, well, they were going to be released halfway through last year and before that. So all these setbacks, it just seems to be still going on. And they're cramming it. So, I mean, it'll be what it'll be, but it'll certainly test a few patience when it comes to Newcastle and maybe a couple of rounds after. It's peak hour at Formula One and Bahrain at the moment. There's like 10 cars out in the track. So if you've got your live timing of KA screen on nearby, as it is, there's about 2.7 thousand people watching while I am at the moment as well too. It's Spencer Street right now, going crazy.
Well, anyway, let's talk about quickly, Doc. Let's sum up a few things on two wheels. As we said, the World Superbike. Interesting that Toprak Ragaglioglu, obviously he's from Turkey, and he was saying his mind is very much in two different places over this weekend. It's going to be a very, very tough opening to the season for him. He's just come back from Turkey, went over there to have a look and to be with his family and said that it was an absolute nightmare over there. He was sleeping in his car because there was there was nowhere to there was nowhere to sleep. All the buildings were destroyed. They had the earthquake, and then sort of the other day they had another massive earthquake as well. Over 50,000 people dead at this stage. So obviously, he's got other things on his mind to think about. But it's looking like a good year for superbikes in general. And we've got Remy Gardner having a bit of a ride moving over from MotoGP, and was fairly quick in the testing as well. Was up in the top 10 on a number of occasions. So how do you think he'll go on the superbikes?
Yeah, he's taken like a duck to water. It's funny you mentioned that, Brett. Just to expand a little bit on that subject, he's gone quicker on a superbike than what he was on a MotoGP bike around the same circuit. So, you could say he's quick. and he's very comfortable back in the.
And we've seen that over the years, haven't we? I mean, there have been some riders who just are much more suited to a super bike than they are to a MotoGP bike, and vice versa. We've had sort of superstars of MotoGP have jumped onto a super bike and been sort of also rans, and then you've had the opposite happen as well, where we've seen sort of absolute people who have dominated the world of super bikes jump onto a MotoGP bike and be totally off the pace. So
yeah, I mean the only guy I've seen able to convert it and win both was the ultimate Aussie. Versatile man himself, which was Troy Bayliss. He was able to literally win a world superbike championship many years ago on his Ducati, which was one of the hardest bikes ever to ride, and Casey Stone can vouch for that. But when he first jumped on his Ducati, when they first came back into the sport many moons ago into MotoGP, the bike was quite world renowned. It was an absolute atrocious to ride, and somehow he and the Ducati got together and he won world championship out of it, etc. And moving on from that, but Troy Bayliss was able to sew up a world superbike championship multiple times many years ago, and he was that good. I can't remember who was injured or out for the last race of the MotoGP race that year. He grabbed half his team, his engineers, and jumped across to the MotoG team and went out and absolutely blitzed and wiped the whole field in a MotoGP because he said he couldn't have done it without the team. They set him up well. So that's worth looking on YouTube. Absolute legendary race how Troy Bayliss did that. So yeah, it's great. I mean, we're very lucky to have a round here in Australia, like a few other things, the World Superbikes. We always say when it comes to any sort of racing, they love coming to Australia. They love hanging out here, except for the wildlife when they have to race against it or alongside it. That's not much fun. Bautista, as we mentioned earlier, is not really a fan of it. But that's you just got to play, swings and roundabouts. It's good fun. But yeah, it'll be awesome down there. It's close racing. BMW will be in it as usual. Good to see the Quacker, Johnny Ray, and a few other ones that will be out there as well too, and having a bit of fun. They've had plenty of testing on it, so they've been down there since I think Tuesday. They got to go out there in their first practice session, have a bit of fun, and throw. And
I was unaware with the local connection to with Johnny Ray as well, is because he's virtually a local down there. He's because he married a girl from Phillip Island, someone he met from, who was a local girl at Phillip Island. He met her, married her, and they spent a lot of their time over the summers basically based at Phillip Island. Just living there. It was only just recently that they've gone back to Europe to live because his kids are now at school age, and he wanted them to have an education in Europe rather than sort of stay out here. But yes, so he's
competition.
Yes. Did you see? Have we seen Valtteri Bottas's helmet for the testing?
No, not yet.
It's a mullet.
I did see that part, but I didn't know. I didn't know the helmet. I didn't know he'd done the helmet as well. Now I didn't.
Yeah, he's painted. Incidentally, good point from for our drag racing fan. The Street Outlaws are coming to Calder Park on Friday and Sunday. There's a monster truck meeting on the Saturday, and they would not move it. Apparently, they wanted to try and move, and they had the booking. And they just said, no, we were there first, so we're not moving it. So it's going to be Friday and Sunday. But the Street Outlaws, as Paul said, if there's anyone looking to buy, remember that all of the ticket prices for this are in US dollars. So the exchange, you pretty much almost got to double the price. So it is very, very expensive if you want to go along. If you want sort of the VIP, if you want the VIP sort of session and all the rest of it, it'll be interesting to see what sort of crowd they get. It'll be interesting to see exactly sort of who they're going to be racing against. They've been testing today. One of the cars had quite a big crash today. One of the American cars crashed at the Perth Motorplex. They've got the first round there coming up over the weekend. But once again, we will have somebody, not sure who it will be, but had that confirmed yesterday. It was very strange to sort of, get a phone call from America saying, yeah, we'd love to come on your television show. So we will have in the lead up to the meeting at Calder Park on the Friday, on Thursday night on Channel 31 on In Pit Lane, somebody from Street Outlaws will be there, and we'll talk to them about how it all works, about sort of, because it is basically it's a reality television show, in inverted commas. Very, very popular, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, the cost of going, if you want sort of, even things like car parking and all the rest of it, very, very expensive once you double those prices.
Switch across. I just want to finish off the MotoGP wrap. Was a couple of things that have come out this week. Alberto Puig, a highly accomplished decorated rider back in his time, who's a team owner and done a lot for the sport as well too. Not as quite as a household name as some of the other more modern day runs, but he's basically said Ducatis have got it. Good luck anyone else trying to catch him, and so he's in the Honda garage these days. It has been for a while, so he's already touting it. And the other one was Yamaha. Yamaha still living in the past a little bit and saying, "Oh, wasn't it good when that guy, that Valentino guy was with us?" Oh, anyway, so lots of fun, but yeah, everyone's a little bit worried about our great mate who's still in the MotoGP round robin tournament, and that is Mr. Thriller Miller. And there's already rumours circling that the bike is not quite as good as the factory was going to say. It should be, and therefore Mr. Miller better be kept quiet, because if he says the wrong thing about the bike, he'll be out the door as quick as other people have been in the past. So yeah, Mr. Oliveira hopefully doesn't give him a good old thrashing, as John Cleese would say. And yeah, so yeah, good luck, Jack. I hope the bike produces some goods for you, because yeah, there's some speculation it's not quite up to scratch yet. So we cross fingers.
Yeah, I mean, it was never going to be as competitive as the Ducati. I mean, a lot of people were wondering why he didn't sort of take any opportunity he had to jump on one of the Ducati satellite teams. If he had, because he would probably be more competitive. But I mean, KTM did have some good results with Brad Binder last year. So who knows? Once again, we won't know anything until the bikes get on the track. And certainly, if we know what Jack's like in the wet, if we have a few wet races, he might be able to pick up a few. Wins and all the rest of it, but I don't think he'll be that. He seems to be a guy who's very comfortable with his decision. He's very comfortable with life at the moment. He just got married, and he's got support locally in terms of his superbike teams from Cat. They're on board with him, so I imagine that at some stage, if he wants to just sort of walk away and sort of raise a family here in Australia and go fishing, like perhaps go fishing with Casey Stoner and jump on a superbike occasionally and go for a bit of a ride. I imagine he'd be pretty comfortable with that. So
unofficially, he could just put his $8 million in his pocket that he's going to be earning this year, which is quite a significant sum to buy a couple of houses in whatever state you want to, and enjoy. But yeah, good luck to them. If they have to be, anyone reaches for the Rain X, Jack will be already across the finish line. Good luck with that.
Yep. Okay. I think that just about does us, guys. I think that's pretty much that. Well, looking at it, that's our hour done and dusted. Now, just a reminder that coming up next week, Tuesday night at 9:00 on the In Pit Lane Facebook page, depending on how everything goes. Basically, as I said, it's not a show as such, but we're going to do a full dress rehearsal. Yes, there will be music. We will have some news. We will have. We'll talk about something. We don't have a guest in or something. We'll talk about something, and you can just see we've got a lot of new people in. We had a huge response from RMI TV with new crew, and if they all come in, God knows what we're going to do with them. But we'll find ways of putting them to work, I imagine. So thank you for their support as well. And then, of course, the following week on Thursday night, the 9th of March. With the first edition of In Pit Lane on Channel 31, and our special guest, the CEO of the Australian Grand Prix Corporation, Andrew Westacott. We'll probably spend most of, if not all of the program with Andrew, because there's an awful lot to talk about. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us. Thanks to Chris, to Doc, and to Pete, and thanks to you, of course, for watching as well. We'll see you next week at the same time. Until then, from all of us here on Full Course Yellow and from In Pit Lane, thanks for joining us, and we'll say bye for now. Bye, everyone.
Have a super